First off, I just want to say thank you for all the support on the first season video. I love reading all the nice comments and seeing that you guys actually like the videos. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I love doing YouTube and you guys keep me motivated to do so. Now, on to Season 2. Season 2 of Rick and Morty, like most people, is my favorite season. There's just something about it. Most of the jokes are hits, the concepts are fantastic, the drama is great, Rick is at his best. Jerry and Beth are really bad, but we don't talk about that. I haven't watched the second season in years, so like the first video, I'm here to ask the question, was Season 2 as good as we remember? I really hope it is. So without further ado, let's get into Rick and Morty Season 2. The first episode of Season 2 is A Wrinkle in Time. Spoiler alert, I love this episode. It starts off where Season 1 ends with time being frozen and Rick, Summer, and Morty are the only people not frozen in time, cleaning up the mess from their party. It's been 6 months since then.
6 months. 6 months. 6 months. 6 months.
They unfreeze time and Rick tells them not to touch their parents or they might shatter into many pieces since their time has to sync up with everyone else's time again. Rick gives Beth and Jerry money to get them out of the house and off they go. Rick, Morty, and Summer are talking when suddenly the screen splits into two. It turns out that Summer and Morty were uncertain about something, so they got split up like this to show their uncertainty. If they don't get back to one reality, they will die. Rick makes a device that will combine the two realities together, but Morty and Summer are still uncertain, so Rick sits them down and mathematically proves how they are both a pain in his ass. That's such a good bit. After that, Rick tries again, but this time it's him who's not synced up, so he does the rational thing and attempts to kill the other Rick. This leads to the screen splitting into 4 separate realities. All 4 Mortys knock out all 4 Ricks and put them in a cage. Rick tries to prove all the Ricks are cool now by leaving a voicemail, which all 4 of them do. Morty still won't let him out, so he just busts through the cage.
Morty!
Then this testicle creature from the 4th dimension played by Keegan-Michael Key comes and gives them collars that brings them to one reality again. But then he says they're going to time jail, so Rick makes everyone take off their collars and starts being uncertain to split the realities again. They get to like 32 different realities and all the Ricks start beating the shit out of the testicle creature and defeat him. Then Rick fixes the collars and tells everyone to put them on. Summer's collars work, but one of the Morty's collars isn't working and he accidentally falls into the void. That Rick goes down to try and fix Morty's collar, but he had dropped it. Then Rick sacrifices himself and gives Morty his collar. But then he finds the other collar, fixes it, and they're all saved. At the end, Beth and Jerry come in and make fun of the collars. In the other plot, Jerry hits a deer and Beth tries to save it since she wants to prove that she isn't just a horse doctor. Then this hunter comes in saying that it's his deer, so even if she does save it, he's just gonna kill it anyways. Jerry eventually comes to the rescue saying that he found guys who can take the deer across the border and take it to a deer hospital to save it and make sure the hunter can't have it. But it turns out that Jerry lied and he takes Beth into the woods to finish the surgery. That's actually really sweet. So yeah, this episode is amazing. The concept of uncertainty splitting the timeline is so original and cool, and they use it to its fullest. I also love how Rick sacrifices himself at the end. It shows that he cares for Morty even though he doesn't like to show it. I also love when Rick starts praying to God. It's just so funny. There's also the Barry and Jeff? My god, I'm so fucking stupid. There's also the Jerry and Beth plot, which is pretty funny, and like I said before, the ending is sweet. It's neat seeing Jerry doing something for Beth and not just arguing with her. Beth is a little mean, but also it works for her character. I also like them having a plot about her being a horse surgeon. In later seasons, they kind of forget about that, except for the giant sperm episode, but the less said about that episode, the better. Finally, this episode is, in my opinion, one of the funniest in the entire show.
That guy is the Redgrin Grumbolt of pretending he knows what's going on. Oh, you agree, huh? You like that Redgrin Grumbolt reference? Well, guess what? I made him up. Think for yourselves, don't be sheep.
In terms of the ranking, this episode is going above Rick Potion number 9 and below Close Rick Counters of the Rick kind. Episode 2 is Morty Night Run. In this episode, we follow Rick selling a gun to an assassin. Morty isn't happy about this because he's a bitch. Rick's right, he's going to kill anyways, might as well get some cash. And of course, with the cash, they go to Blips and Chips. Hell yeah. Blips and Chips is a big space arcade. And here we get, in my opinion, one of the best gags in Rick and Morty, Roy. To calm Morty down, Rick puts a helmet on Morty's head and he wakes up as a child. It turns out that what we have been seeing is a dream of a kid named Roy. Then we go through his entire life, finding love, getting cancer, beating cancer, and then living to an old age, but unfortunately, he dies at a rug store. Morty then wakes up terrified, and he's obviously confused and scared since he just lived a whole different life. Then it turns out it was just a video game. It's so morbid and I love it. After Morty is traumatized for like the 10th time in the series, he leaves with Rick's trash ship to go find Crumbopulous Michael, the assassin. But then he accidentally kills Crumbopulous Michael. It turns out that Crumbopulous's target was this fart with infinity stones in it, who's being held at a government base. Rick finds Morty and complains to him, saying that they should go back to Blips and Chips, but Morty wants to save Fart. Yes, that's his name. Rick gave it to him. Rick leaves, and the guards are about to kill Morty and Fart, but then Rick uses his portal gun to fill the room with water and drain it. This is so cool. The writers kind of forgot in later seasons that the portal gun can be used as a weapon. I hope they bring back this concept because it's so cool. They escape. Then they go to Gearhead's planet to get the ship fixed, since Morty kind of fucked it up. If you don't remember, Gearhead is from the party episode of season 1, and it's nice to see him again. It is revealed that Fart just wants to go home, and Morty agrees to take him there. It also turns out that Fart is a psychic, and shows Morty what he can do with this really cool sequence playing out, with him and Morty to a legitimately amazing song.
Goodbye, Moon Man.
I've been listening to this song for weeks now on my runs. It's so good. After that masterpiece, it's revealed that Gearhead turned Rick and Morty into the police since they are wanted now. So Rick replaces his mouth with his balls. Damn, that's a bit much. One chase scene later with the police and they are surrounded. Fart leaves and uses his psychic powers to make one of the police officers think about his wife cheating on him, which makes him crash, killing hundreds of people. I love Rick's comeback of how saving one life has ended so many more. They make it to the portal that will take Fart home, but then Fart reveals he's going to come back.
Oh yeah!
And kill everyone.
Oh no!
Morty obviously won't let him do this, so he shoots him. He finds his way back to Rick, devastated, and Rick makes fart jokes at him. In the other plot, we follow Jerry being dropped off by Rick to a Jerry daycare. I love this so much. Such a funny idea. Jerry's not happy at first, but when he tries to leave, he finds out that he wouldn't be able to survive, so he comes back. When Rick and Morty go to pick him up, Morty loses the ticket they gave to him to remember which Jerry is theirs, so they take one and leave. It's later revealed in season 6 that they got the wrong Jerry, which is hilarious. When I first started watching this episode, I was not looking forward to it. I never really liked this one, but I don't know what I was on because this episode is fantastic. There are so many funny gags with Fart, like him reading Rick's mind.
Located in what you call get out of my head, Fart. I know you're in here, la 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 la.
And the whole ending bit with Morty doing all this, hurting so many people, and it turning out that Fart is a genocidal maniac. Blips and Chips is a pretty cool location, and I wish they did more with it. Like, what other wacky alien games are there? They do go back in season 6, but it's only about Roy, which is kind of lame. Once again, the Moon Man song is such a banger. Go listen to it if you haven't yet. I never really brought this up, but I love how colorful this show is. It's very pleasing to look at, and the colors just kind of pop. I don't know how to say that without sounding like a 5-year-old, so I'll just keep it like that. The Jerry plot is one of my favorite B plots in the entire show. It's just so funny seeing how pathetic Jerry is. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going above Rick's Ski Business and below M. Night Shyamalan Aliens. Before we get into the next episode, if you're enjoying this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps the channel out. Also, if you want to see me do more videos like this on any other series, I'm open to suggestions. Anyways, let's get back into it. Episode 3 is Autoerotic Assimilation. Wow, that's actually a fantastic title for the episode. It starts out with Summer, Morty, and Rick running into a hive mind called Unity. It turns out that Rick and Unity used to date. There's actually 3 plots in this episode, so be ready. In the first plot, we follow Rick and Unity reconnecting. Rick is a really bad influence on them. They are both now completely wrecked. In the next plot, we follow Summer and Morty just kind of hanging out on the planet. Summer finds it wrong that Unity took over an entire planet of people, so she tries to revolt. I mean, Summer is right. It's really messed up. Eventually, due to Unity being wasted, they let some of the people go, and they immediately start a race war. I love Morty's line to Summer.
Summer. First race war, huh?
Morty and Summer escape and go back to Rick and Unity. There they try to convince Rick to leave with them, but he's like, nah, I get it.
I want milk.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm sorry for that one. Anyways, they leave Rick. Before I get into the ending of that plot, let's talk about the Jerry and Beth plot. You know, the last 2 plots with Jerry and or Beth were actually great, so was this one?
No.
Jerry and Beth discover Rick's secret lair under the garage, and they go into it and find an alien chained up. Then they fucking argue for the rest of the episode. Eventually, the alien breaks out just to tell them how annoying and awful they are. Favorite character right here. Hopefully after this, they stop being so awful. I do remember it getting worse in this season, though.
Oh, a man can dream, though. A man can dream.
In Rick's plot, Unity wisened up and realized Rick is bad for them, so they leave him. Then we get one of the most iconic scenes to come out of Rick and Morty, with Rick almost killing himself with the song Do You Feel It by Chaos Chaos playing, which is a banger song, by the way. I don't know if this is a hot take, but I'm not the biggest fan of this episode. The ending is obviously fantastic, one of my favorite sequences in the entire series. It shows that Rick actually does have emotions and is deeply disturbed, but everything else was just alright. The Rick and Unity stuff was fine. Summer and Morty's plot was actually pretty funny, but it has a weird message that some people should have their minds taken over, which is a weird thing to push, but eh. And Jerry and Beth's plot is the worst thing in the series so far. There is a community reference in this episode, so it does get extra points. And like I said before, the ending of this episode is fantastic, so it does bump it up a couple points too. In terms of the ranking, this is going above Something Ricked This Way Comes. Yes, I saw the comments. I know I pronounced it wrong. I'm sorry. And below Lawnmower Dog. Episode 4 is Total Recall. This episode is one of my all-time favorites. The basic premise of this is what if Family Guy was sci-fi?
You gotta put these seeds inside your butt.
What the fuck?
Okay, just hear me out. We start off with the Smith family eating breakfast with Jerry's brother, Steve, who's apparently been living with the Smiths for a year now. Rick comes in and sees right through Steve's BS and does what an average American would do and shoots him. It turns out that Steve is a parasite that implants false memories into people's heads so they can leech food and shelter off them. It seems like the problem is solved, but then a character called Mr. Poopy Butthole comes in and everyone is all buddy-buddy with him. Then the intro plays and Mr. Nope. Not calling him that anymore. I'm going to be calling him PB from now on because I can't keep saying that. The intro plays with PB now in most of it. Such a great intro. The Smiths and PB are in the living room and Rick writes the number 6 down on a piece of paper to ensure that they all know how many people are there. He also puts up blast shields around the house so the parasites can't escape and take over the world. And here is where the Family Guy sci-fi thing comes in. PB says this.
Reminds me of that time we all got stuck in the elevator together. You remember that?
Then we get a cutaway gag of the Smiths stuck in the elevator after Hulk the Musical. A character called Cousin Nicky comes in and saves them. What a hero. Then he shows up inside the house with the family. Everyone's acting like this character didn't just appear. Rick realizes something is wrong and shoots Cousin Nicky. But more and more cutaways keep happening and eventually the house gets full of wacky characters like Sleepy Gary, who is Beth's husband but is also cheating on her with Jerry, Pencil Jester, Ghost in the Jar, Hammer Eye, and so much more. Everyone now is trying to get Rick to lower the blast shields, but he won't do it. So Morty takes Rick into the garage to kill him. Right before Morty shoots him, Rick starts yelling at Morty, saying what a horrible nuisance he is. This makes Morty realize something, that you can only have good memories of the parasites. This is just a fantastic twist. Morty and Rick start rampaging the house while finding the people who aren't parasites with cutaways that are so funny. I especially like the one where Summer just walks up to Morty and kicks him in the balls. After the family eliminates all the parasites, they sit down for dinner, but oh no, PB is still alive, so Beth shoots him. But then it turns out that PB is not a parasite, and the episode ends with the family trying to help him as he bleeds out. What an episode. In my opinion, this is the funniest episode in the entire series. The character interactions are hilarious. There are so many great cutaway gags and some very memorable lines. There's a cutaway of all of Rick's catchphrases, and I still say, grass tastes bad to this day. I love how the line's delivered. It's just so good. And it's so fucking stupid, but I love it. All the designs for the parasites are so good, and I know the crew had a lot of fun coming up with them. The concept of this episode is also really damn good, and the way they solve the problem is actually genius. This is also, in my opinion, one of the best written episodes in the show. My only problem is how PB wasn't a parasite. How did the parasite spread more after Jerry's brother got shot if PB wasn't one? I don't know, maybe one was just hiding in the closet. But the ending gag with PB not being a parasite is really funny, so I don't really care. In terms of the ranking, I think we have a new #1 spot. This episode is going to be really hard to beat for me. It's just so goddamn good. Episode 5 is Get Schwifty. It starts with this giant alien head coming to Earth and demanding the inhabitants to show him what they got. Rick and Morty see this and go to a US military base to help out. And here we get introduced to one of my favorite characters of the series, the President, who's played by Keith David. I love Keith David, so I was already gonna love the President, but he is also one of the funniest characters in the show. Rick reveals that the alien wants them to perform a newly written, catchy song, but disaster strikes at the Grammys. There was an earthquake due to the head, so now all the popular musicians are dead, except for Ice-T. So the President asks Rick if he can perform a new song, and Rick says yes. Rick and Morty go on stage, and Morty is really nervous since he's never done anything with music before. But Rick reassures him and they perform the song Get Schwifty.
He said it! He said it!
The alien enjoys the song and disappears. It seems like the day is saved, but then the Earth is teleported to a place with a whole bunch of alien heads. It turns out that that was an audition for a music competition show, where if you lose, your planet gets vaporized. Now Rick, Morty, and Ice-T only have a couple hours to come up with a new catchy song. Morty is freaking out because Rick and Ice-T seem to not care. He wants to at least grab the family just in case they fail so they can leave with them. I mean, it makes sense. Morty's already had to abandon one family, so I don't think he's in the mood to do it again. Rick lies to him and says the portal gun is almost out of juice, so they'll have to win the competition. Morty finds out that he lied, so he steals the portal gun and runs away into a random portal. This is the first time Morty's ever used the portal gun, so he doesn't know how it works. He's just going through random portals, and eventually he ends up on Bird Person's planet. There, Bird Person tells Morty that he should go help Rick because it's a dick move not to. Morty says that Rick's always a dick, which is very fair. Then Bird Person tells Morty that Rick is the reason they know each other and why he's alive. And for some reason, he has a picture of Rick holding baby Morty, which is really weird. It's just kind of hung up in his house. Like, is it Bird Person culture to have a picture of your best friend and their grandson? I don't know. Bird Person asked Morty just to have a little faith in Rick. Back with Rick, it's revealed that Ice-T was an alien called Water T who was turned to ice and banished from his home planet for not caring at all. Then he leaves Rick because he doesn't care. Trust me, this is important. After that, a big military guy knocks out the president because he doesn't believe in Rick and wants to launch nukes at the heads. Yeah, that will definitely solve the problem. Rick goes on stage alone and is failing. During this, Morty ends up back at the recording studio and finds the president tied up. Together, they go to Rick and the president tries to stop the attack, but it's too late. The bombs do absolutely nothing to the head, surprisingly, and Earth is now disqualified from the contest. They're about to be blasted by a death laser, but then Ice-T comes in and deflects it, saying he cares now. What a character arc. Truly one for the ages. Then the group performs a song and they win the competition. In the other plot, we follow Summer joining a potato-loving cult, worshipping the heads and becoming a much better person. At first, Jerry and Beth are loving it. The cult offers Beth to become head of surgery and Jerry to be their marketing manager, but they decline. They realize that even though Summer is better behaved, they'd rather have their actual daughter and denies the cult. So the cult ties them to balloons and are about to let them float off. But then the heads start saying boo due to what's happening in the other plot. Then the cult realizes they were in a contest and the heads weren't really gods. Overall, a great episode. Like most episodes, this one is really funny. One of my favorite jokes is when the cult is sending off sinners into the sky and they have a goth girl there, and the reason why they are killing her is because she's goth. That's just so stupid, I love it. The concept of a singing show to the death is an entertaining idea and they did it well. I'm gonna say it. Get Schwifty is a jam. The ending song is also pretty funny. Why does Morty sound like that though? Ice-T being an alien is so random but really funny. Until they made a terrible episode about him in season 7, but we'll get there when we get there. It's neat to see the continuity with Tammy being with Bird Person since he takes her home after the events of last season's finale. Even though I do remember where this leads for Bird Person. The Beth, Jerry, and Summer plot is also good. I love Principal Vagina, not related, starting this cult and just going with it. Sending sinners off into the sky with balloons is so brutal, like, come on, man. He does get his comeuppance at the end, though. I also really like Jerry and Beth denying their dream jobs just because they want their daughter and not some brainwashed zombie. And then they also say they love each other, which is sweet. In terms of the ranking, this is going below Morty Night Run, but above Risky Business. Episode 6 is The Ricks Must Be Crazy. The episode starts off with Rick, Morty, and Summer in a dimension with Ball Fondlers the movie, but also giant psychic spiders. Rick tries to turn the ship on, but it's not working. Rick finds out that there's something wrong with the battery, so he and Morty go into it. Yes, that's right, I said go into it. It turns out that Rick created a micro-universe where the inhabitants stomp on this thing called a Google box to generate power for the ship. Morty isn't happy about this because it's basically slavery, but Rick just brushes him aside. Rick disguises himself as an alien, which I don't know why he has to, they're not human. He goes down to try and find out what's wrong, and it turns out that a scientist named Zeep created a mini-verse where the inhabitants generate power on a flubel crank. Rick has the same exact reaction as Morty and tells him it's basically slavery. Then they find a scientist named Kyle in this universe that is creating a teeny verse in which he's going to make the inhabitants generate power using a blubel yank. I'll let it slide, Kyle. You are played by Nathan Fielder. Then Zeep says the same exact thing that Rick says about slavery and realizes that Rick created his universe. They start fighting when Kyle crashes the ship they came on into a mountain because he can't handle the fact that his universe was made to create power. Then Zeep and Rick fight for months. In the Teenyverse, time runs slower, and Morty joins the tree people. Morty forces the two to work together to get them out of there, and they start to get along. But when they get out of the Teenyverse, Zeep betrays Rick and starts running to get to the ship that will get them out of the Miniverse. There's too many verses, I'm starting to go crazy. They both get back into the Microverse and race to get out of there. Rick makes it to the ship first, but Zeep gets there and they fight. After one actually raw as fuck fight scene, Rick and Morty leave. The car surprisingly turns on. Morty asks why it's working, and Rick reveals that Zeep knows if it stops working, he will just throw the battery away. Damn, that's actually so fucked. In the other plot, we follow Summer and Rick's ship. Rick tells the car to keep Summer safe, so it slices a man who was harassing her into meat cubes. Then another guy comes and Summer tells the ship not to kill him, so it paralyzes him. Damn. Then the cops come and Summer says don't hurt anyone, so it creates a replica of one of the police officer's dead son and makes the son say don't hurt the car and then melts the kid. Holy shit. Eventually the ship helps make a treaty with the psychic spiders in the US, so they leave the ship alone. Both plots were fantastic. Rick and Zeep's rivalry is hilarious. Them being so arrogant, saying that the other person's verse is messed up was damn funny. I also like Morty taking initiative and making them work together. It really shows his growth throughout the series. The summer plot is just so funny. The escalation of the situation is both funny and terrifying. I also love how a seemingly throwaway line about psychic spiders at the beginning comes back in the end. They do this a lot in the early seasons and it's always cool to see. It's just really good writing. The whole dead son thing is awful. In terms of the ranking, this is going below A Wrinkle in Time, but above Rick Potion number 9. Episode 7 is Big Trouble in Little Sanchez. This episode starts off with the Smiths sitting at the dinner table and Morty tells them that one of the lunch ladies from school was found dead with 2 holes in her neck and no blood. Rick says that it was a vampire, which are real in this universe. Summer asks Rick if he can de-age himself and come hunt a vampire with her and Morty at school. Rick tells her the idea is stupid. But then the next day of school, Rick shows up as a teenage boy. He explains that he got bored and might as well hunt vampires with his grandkids. They find out who did it. It was their gym teacher, Coach Ferratu. I never really bring up the post-credit scenes, but this episode's one is the head of the vampires learning that Coach Ferratu got killed, and he's like,
"Why the fuck would he name himself after a famous vampire movie? Was he doing a bit?"
That's a really funny gag. Rick, or as everyone calls him now, Tiny Rick, is a big hit at school. Rick explains that he didn't de-age himself, he just put his consciousness into a younger clone of himself, and the real him is floating in a vat of liquid. He's about to go back into his old body when Summer's crush, Toby Matthews, asks if they could have a party at their house and if Tiny Rick will be there. Rick agrees to stay in his teenage body for a little bit longer and party. At the party, Morty and Jessica start talking and hanging out. Everyone's having a fun time when Tiny Rick sings a song. Now, you might have not caught this in the episode, but Rick is trying to send a message to Summer and Morty that he needs to be put back in his old body.
I'm really old, this isn't me. My real body's slowly dying in a vat.
It's very subtle. Morty's stupid and also only paying attention to Jessica so he doesn't notice, but Summer does. The next day, she tries to get Tiny Rick back into his old body, but he refuses. They go to the dance that night and Rick suddenly sends a message again.
Let me out! Let me out! This is not a dance!
Summer gets Tiny Rick expelled, so he would want to go back to being old. That doesn't work, it just kind of ruins Summer's social life. Back at the house, Summer and Morty jump Tiny Rick and force him to get back in his old body. It turns out that real Rick's thoughts would only come out when he does something with teenage angst, or something like that, I don't know. Then he murders a bunch of his clones naked. In the other plot, Jerry and Beth go to marriage counseling. Oh, yay. It is space couples therapy, so it's a little more interesting. There, the therapist has a device that creates a creature that looks like what a person sees their spouse as. Beth is a giant terrifying spider thing, and Jerry is a worm. They go through a tour of all the couple's monsters and they kill each other. But Jerry and Beth work together to escape and rampage the facility. The therapist tells them that they have the worst marriage he's ever seen and then abandons them on the planet. Beth gets captured by Spider Beth, who wants to create a whole army of Jerrys. They are kinda useless, so I don't know why. She does this by putting the device on Beth and keeping her still with a metal beam. But then Jerry mans up and starts killing the worm Jerrys, which makes Beth see Jerry as a badass, creating more badass Jerrys who aid Jerry in the fight. They try to free Beth, but they can't bend metal, so Jerry puts the helmet on one of the buff Jerrys and spawns a goddess Beth. She destroys the Spider Beth and takes the Jerrys with her. Marriage saved. This was a pretty good episode. I like that they focused mostly on Summer in this one. I really like her character, and her somehow realizing that Rick needs to be put back in his body is impressive.
I'm dying in a vat in the garage.
Morty is a little bitch in this episode, but it works. I love the scene at the very end where Rick is killing all his clones. It's so brutal and funny, especially since Summer only cares about him putting on pants. Surprisingly, I actually like the Jerry and Beth plot. I remember hating it, but it's actually got some really funny moments.
I'm here to save you, or my name isn't Jerry Smith. Aha! Yes, Jerry Smith.
The concept of this plot is fantastic. Also, Bill Cipher reference.
Yeah, baby.
I know you probably already knew that part of this episode, but did you also know Alex Hirsch, the creator of Gravity Falls, plays Toby Matthews in this episode? That's pretty neat. Another reference I noticed was the Rick that Tiny Rick drew looks a lot like the original design of Rick, but the less said about that short, the better. In terms of the ranking, this is going above the pilot and below Rick's business. Episode 8 is Interdimensional Cable 2, Tempting Fate. This episode starts off with the Smiths at an alien hospital since Jerry got an alien disease. Summer, Morty, Beth, and Rick go to the waiting room where they watch Interdimensional Cable. Part 2, baby! But more on that later. The other plot follows Jerry having to choose to remove his penis to save an alien called Shrimply Pibbles, who is one of the most influential civil rights leaders in the galaxy. Jerry agrees due to his ego, but tries to weasel his way out of it by getting Beth to say no for him. At first she does, but then she sees what they're going to replace it with and tells Jerry that he has to make the decision himself. The doctor allows Jerry to use his computer to jack off one last time. Jesus Christ, what is this plot? And there, he finds a file about Shrimply Pibbles. Apparently, he has a heroin addiction. So at a press conference, Jerry brings this up to try and weasel his way out of giving away his junk. But it turns out that Shrimply Pibbles' home planet has an atmosphere of 10% heroin, so he has to breathe it in or he will die. Everyone's booing Jerry, and it turns out that they are now going to use a synthetic heart to save Shrimply Pibbles. But Jerry wants people to like him, so he goes into the operating room while the surgery is in progress and tries to make them put his penis into Shrimply Pibbles. Once again, what the hell is this plot? He rightfully gets shot. But it turns out that the hospital is so advanced that Jerry is fine. I've heard that most people don't like this episode, but I thought it was decent. The interdimensional cable definitely carried this one though. I love the Jan Michael Vincent bit, the Little Bits one, and the personal space one. The rest are really good though. They also introduced the Plumbus. The Jerry plot was fine. Most of the time watching it, I was thinking, man, they should really go back to Interdimensional Cable. That kinda sucks because the first one had a really good side plot. I felt really bad for Jerry in this one. It is a legitimately tough decision to make, and after all the turmoil he goes through, it turns out they could have just used a synthetic heart the entire time, and now everyone hates him. Poor guy. In terms of the ranking, this is going below Lawnmower Dog and above Autoerotic Assimilation. Episode 9 is Look Who's Purging Now. This episode starts off with Rick and Morty in the ship going through space, and suddenly a giant bug splatters on the windshield. The ship's out of wiper fluid, so they go down to a nearby planet to get some. It turns out that on that planet, there's a big festival where all crime is legal to allow people to get their frustrations out. Once the sun sets, the festival will begin. Rick calls out that it's like the movie The Purge. Really quickly, I want to clear something up from the first video. I said I like the earlier seasons because they don't make many references. I should have worded that better. What I really meant was I like how they don't shove it in your face. Like in the episode Lawnmower Dog, Scary Terry is a reference to Freddy Krueger, but they don't go, holy crap, it's just like Freddy Krueger. They do this sometimes in the early seasons, like this episode saying it's like The Purge. But the thing is, it's few and far between, so it doesn't annoy me much. But later seasons, it's just so often. But we'll get to that when we get to the later seasons. Anyways, tangent over. Rick wants to hover above the ground with the ship and watch the festival, but Morty is against it. Rick does it anyways, but gets grossed out quickly. They're about to leave when Morty sees a girl in danger and he wants to save her. They do, and they get back into the ship with the girl. Her name is Arthricia. After Morty fails to riz her up,
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
she then remembers that her grandma is in danger. Rick calls bullshit on that, but still goes to help her. They go to the house of her supposed grandma, and Rick tells Morty to wait in the ship. There's a couple of gunshots, then Arthricia comes out with Rick's gun and steals the ship. Morty hurries into the building and sees Rick, who has been shot. Rick makes a call back home to Summer and tells her to deploy something that will help them. During all this, Rick has to fight off purgers and is getting more and more frustrated with Morty not wanting to kill anyone. I'll go through the other plot real quick because it's really short. Jerry attempts to talk to Summer, but it's not working. After Summer deploys the package for Rick, she asks what's up with him, and it turns out that he just misses hanging out with his daughter. Aw, that's pretty sweet. But then he asks for money. I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. And that's the end of that plot. Back on the Purge planet, Morty and Rick go to this lighthouse to put up a device so they can receive the package. An old man answers the door and tells them they can if Morty listens to his tale. It turns out that his tale is a screenplay which is extremely bad. Morty listens to all of it, and the guy asks for criticism, so Morty gives him a little bit, and he immediately tries to kick them out. Morty is fed up and pushes him down the stairs, killing him. Morty and Rick go outside to receive the package. It gives them suits of armor, and they start killing purgers. Morty is liking it a bit too much. They find Arthricia and are about to kill her when she tells them that all she wanted to do was kill the rich people who made the festival. Morty is so pissed off he doesn't care, and even threatens to kill Rick, but then Rick just tases him. Rick gives Arthricia the armor and they go to town on the rich people. At the end, Rick and Morty leave, and the townspeople create a plan to have one night every year where they can commit any crime. What a genius plan. Morty's embarrassed for what he did, and Rick tells him that a candy bar he ate earlier contained purginol, which makes you super aggressive. But then it turns out there was no purginol in it the entire time. Another great episode. I like the idea of the purge, even though it makes no sense and also the movies are terrible. It's kind of funny that the best thing to come out of the purge is this episode. The hyper-violence is fun. I don't know how other people feel about Morty being this angry and violent, but I like it. If I had to deal with the stuff he puts up with throughout the series, I would also have a lot of pent-up anger. This episode once again reminds me of one of the biggest flaws of later seasons. Rick is too overpowered. If this was a season 5 episode, Rick would just kill everyone. But no, Rick has to use his wits to get out of the situation. And I like that way more. I know I keep saying this about all the episodes, but it's true. This episode is really funny.
A little help? A spoon? I'm sorry! There's a pile of silverware next to you and you throw me the one thing that can never kill anything?
I also like the bit at the end where Morty tries to riz up Arthricia again and she keeps saying that she has a boyfriend. Like, she didn't have to say it that much. The Summer and Jerry plot was fine. It's just a couple minutes, and the reveal of why Jerry needs the money is hilarious. It's so he can call a guy who charges $1.99 a minute to be his friend. It's so pathetic and I love it. In terms of the ranking, this is going below Get Schwifty and above Risky Business. And finally, episode 10 is The Wedding Squanchers. This episode starts off with the Smiths eating breakfast and Beth telling Jerry to get a job. Then out of nowhere, this flying flesh mound comes in and gives Rick an invitation to Bird Person and Tammy's wedding. Oh god. Rick doesn't want to go, but is forced due to them accidentally sending Jerry as a present. So off to Planet Squanch they go. Once they arrive, Rick is still pissed off. Jerry comes in shortly after. Everyone makes small talk except for Rick, who is getting drunk at the bar. Morty goes over and tells him to stop being such a downer since he's surrounded by all his friends and family. Rick, of course, ridicules him. Birdperson and Beth are talking, and Birdperson reveals that there are 17 individuals at the wedding who are wanted by the Galactic Federation. I'm sure nothing bad will happen. Then the wedding happens, and Tammy and Birdperson are now married. At the reception, Rick makes a toast, which at first seems like it's going to be terrible, but then says that Birdperson is his best friend, and if he's happy, Rick's happy. That's pretty sweet of Rick. Rick finally opens up about something, and it's nice to see. I really hope nothing bad happens after this. Tammy stands up to give a toast.
No. Wait. Wait.
She then reveals that she was an undercover agent for the Galactic Federation, tells them all that they're all under arrest, and kills Birdperson. God, I knew it was gonna happen, but it still stings. Rick and the family escape, and Rick tells them they can't go back to Earth since the Galactic Federation has probably taken it over. So they go and try to find another planet to live on. The first one is a tiny one. The second one is a planet that has everything on the cob. Rick freaks out about this. I don't know why. He doesn't explain, and I think that's why it's so funny.
Get in the goddamn ship! Everything's on a cob! The whole planet's on a cob! Go, go, go!
Then the third planet has a screaming sun. They decide the tiny planet is the best option and set up shop. On this planet, it's revealed that the Galactic Federation did take over Earth. Rick goes to conquer Antarctica and finds a cave. In the cave, he finds a hole underneath the shack that they're living in and hears his family talk about him. Jerry wants to turn him in, but no one else does. They will continue to follow Rick because they love him, and Beth doesn't want him to leave again. The next scene, Rick tells Morty that he's gonna get some ice cream, and Morty asks if he wants him to come so he can mask Rick with his brainwaves. That's a great callback. Rick says no, and Morty knows he won't come back. Morty tells Rick that he won't forgive him for not telling Beth, but Rick leaves. I love this moment so much. Morty has grown a lot throughout the series, and this scene shows it pretty well. He would have never called Rick out like this at the beginning, but now he does. Rick calls the Galactic Federation as Jerry and turns himself in, but he makes sure the family will get sent back to Earth and will be safe. And back on Earth, Jerry gets a job. Not as good as a character arc as Ice-T, but it'll do. Rick gets put into a maximum security prison. During this whole sequence, Hurt by Nine Inch Nails is playing, and the song fits the situation so well. It was a perfect choice. And that's where this episode and the season ends. Damn, what an episode. This episode makes me sad, both because of what happens in the episode and what happens after. Rick choosing to turn himself in to save his family is amazing. He doesn't tell them that he's doing it, which shows that he's still not willing to open up, but deep down he loves his family and wants the best for them. It's just so good. The Tammy twist is great, even on a rewatch. Them choosing to kill off Bird Person was a great idea. Sure, he's only been in 2 episodes before this, but we still know that he and Rick are close, so it hits even harder. Especially since it's right after Rick opening up for once. But of course, he's actually not dead, which I'll talk about my feelings about in a later video. Even though this episode has a lot of great character and dramatic moments, it didn't stop it from being hilarious. From Rick's corn on the cob freakout, to when Rick starts reading his toast off a piece of paper and the piece of paper telling him to stammer off, to Jerry finally getting a job at the end. Some fantastic bits. And of course, there's an after credits scene of PB from episode 4 this season, finishing the episode. Then he has a freak out asking the pizza man what he thought of the finale. This is a perfect way to end off the season. In terms of the ranking, this is going above Rick's Must Be Crazy, but below A Wrinkle in Time. So, that's season 2. As you will see with my final ranking, it's pretty obvious I like the season more than the first. The first is still great, but this one's on a whole nother level. From being the funniest season in the show, to such great character moments, to the fantastic concepts, this is truly one of my favorite seasons of any TV show ever. Yeah, I'll go that far. I made jokes about hating Jerry and Beth this entire video, but going back and rewatching these episodes, I realized they're not as bad as I remember. They can be annoying, especially in their plot and autoerotic assimilation, but they are usually funny. Morty is at his best, and so is Rick. I also like how they started to include Summer more often in plots. I don't know if this is a hot take, but she is one of my favorite characters in the series so far. The other thing that made me sad about Wedding Squanchers was that this is the end of an era. From here, the show goes downhill in many ways. They stop taking serialization as seriously. The show in general decreases in quality, and it makes me sad that this part of Rick and Morty is over. Don't get me wrong, I love episodes from later seasons, but they don't quite have the same feel as the first 2 seasons. The potential of the series is astounding, but from what I remember, the next seasons aren't going to come close to season 2 or even season 1. But it's not all doom and gloom. I love season 6, and season 7 has some standout moments. So I still have hope for the series' future, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So, without further ado, my ranking of the first 2 seasons goes like this. In 21st place is Raising Gazorpazorp. In 20th place is Anatomy Park. In 19th place is Something Wicked This Way Comes. In 18th place is Interdimensional Cable 2, Tempting Fate. In 17th place is Autoerotic Assimilation. In 16th place is Lawnmower Dog.
In 15th place is Rixty Minutes.
In 14th place is The Pilot. In 13th place is Big Trouble in Little Sanchez. In 12th place is Rixie Business. In 11th place is Look Who's Purging Now. In 10th place is Get Schwifty. In 9th place is Morty Night Run. In 8th place is M. Night Shyam Aliens. In 7th place is Rick Potion number 9. In 6th place is The Ricks Must Be Crazy. In 5th place is Wedding Squanchers. In 4th place is A Wrinkle in Time. In 3rd place is Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind. In 2nd place is Me Seeks and Destroy. And in 1st place Total Recall. Thank you guys for watching, and once again, if you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Comment your ranking or any of your thoughts down below in the comments. I'll see you guys in the Season 3 video. Bye.